everything you need to know about Julius Caesar, Act 1, Scene 2. And let me just say right up front that this is such a long act and so much going on that it's going to be divided into at least 2 parts as I talk through this. So let's go ahead and jump into Scene 2. It's a public place. Enter Caesar, Antony for the course, meaning he's there to run a race. Calpurnia, Portia, Decius, Cicero, Brutus, Cassius, Casca, soothsayer. After them, Marullus and Flavius, who are the 2 guys from the first scene, who are now following Caesar and what you'd say his train or his entourage, his posse that's coming after him. If you don't know who any of those characters are, I did do a character video at the beginning here. So Caesar, Calpurnia, peace ho, Caesar speaks. Calpurnia, here my lord, that's his wife. Caesar, stand you directly in Antonius' way when he doth run his course. Antonius, Caesar my lord, forget not in your speed, Antonius, to touch Calpurnia, for our elders say the baron touch it in this holy chase, shake off their sterile curse. All right, so Caesar's kind of calling out in this public crowd that he thinks his wife is the reason that she's not been able to get pregnant. So Antony is supposed to touch her as he's racing because there's kind of this belief, this old wives' tale, this legend that if a runner touches her in the race, then she could then have children. And in the movie, you can look, she looks all bent out of shape when he says this. I shall remember when Caesar says, do this, it is performed. Set on and leave no ceremony out. Caesar! Ha, who calls? But every noise be still, peace yet again. Who is it in the press that calls on me? I hear a tongue shriller than all the music cry, Caesar, speak! Caesar's turn to hear. So as they're walking along, someone calls out his name, and he's like, hey, everybody stop, let's go ahead and listen to this. So out comes this, a soothsayer would be like a fortune teller, a seer, someone who can see in the future probably, or, mystically, Shakespeare likes to pull this kind of stuff in. Beware the Ides of March. The Ides means the 15th or the middle. The Ides of March is the day that we know, historically speaking, that Caesar was killed. So Shakespeare puts in kind of this metaphysical aspect of, the fates and the stars. So in the future, this man can see that this is a day of danger for Caesar. What man is that? A soothsayer bids you beware the Ides of March. Set him before me, let me see his face. Fellow, come from the throng, look upon Caesar. What sayest thou to me now? Speak once again. Beware the Ides of March. He's a dreamer. Let us leave him pass. So he calls him out, right, and lets him repeat his warning and then rejects it. It's like, whatever. He obviously thinks this guy's a little out there. So a trumpet sounds, and everybody leaves, but Brutus and Cassius, they stay behind. They're going to have this conversation that Cassius wants to have. Remember, Cassius is one of the main plotters against Caesar. In fact, he's kind of the ringleader at this point. So he wants to talk to Brutus. Brutus is a close friend of Caesar, but something's been going on that makes Cassius want to talk to him. Will you go see the order of the course? Will you go see the race? Not I. I pray you do. I'm not gamesome. I do lack some part of that quick spirit that is in Antony. Let me not hinder, Cassius, your desires. I'll leave you. So he's not a big fan of sports, so Cassius can go watch if he wants to. Brutus, I do observe you now of late. I have not from your eyes that gentleness and show of love as I was wont to have. You bear too stubborn and too strange a hand over your friend that loves you. So Cassius right here, right, he's making this observation about Brutus that I've noticed that you're not as kind of warm and friendly as you used to be. You're going to see a lot of this, like your friend that loves you, shows of love. They're not talking anything romantic at all. It's just that, relationships between the senators here in power, that they are friendly relations. But he's noticed that Brutus has kind of been held back and withheld what maybe normally would be his behavior. Brutus responds, Cassius, be not deceived. If I veiled my look, veiled meaning covered, or looked differently, I turn the trouble of my countenance. Countenance is your facial expression. Merely upon myself. So you got to blame me. Vexed, Vex means to be bothered or annoyed. Vexed I am of late with passions, meaning his feelings, of some difference. In other words, my feelings are conflicted. Conceptions only proper to myself. Conception is a thought, so it's thoughts that I have just for me, which gives some soil. Soil is like soiled being dirty. They have soiled my behaviors. So stuff going inside has made me look differently outside, right? And let not therefore my good friends be grieved, don't be bummed, among which number Cassius be you one, you're a good friend of mine, nor construe means interpret, any further my neglect than that poor Brutus with himself at war forgets the shows of love to other men. So I'm so messed up on the inside that I'm not really paying attention to how I'm acting to you people on the outside. Well then, Brutus, I mistook your passion. I made a mistake. By means whereof this breast of mine hath buried thoughts of great value, worthy cogitations. Tell me, good Brutus, can you see your face? So I've had these thoughts that I've kept to myself because I thought you were all bent out of shape. So, can you see what you look like? Brutus says, no, Cassius, for the eye sees not itself, but by reflection, by some other things. In other words, you have to have something reflect in your face in order to see it, right? 'Tis just, yeah, you're right. And is very much lamented, Brutus, that you have no such mirrors as will turn your hidden worthiness into your eye, that you might see your shadow. I have heard where many of the best respect in Rome, except the mortal Caesar, speaking of Brutus and groaning under this age's yoke, have wished that noble Brutus has his eyes. So it's very sad that you haven't seen like with a mirror yourself, right? That you are worthy. You have these great qualities that you could see. Because many of the most important people in Rome, when they talk of you, wished that you could see what they see. And then there's a couple little hints here as to what Cassius is getting into, right? He says, many of the best respect of Rome, except immortal Caesar, so he hasn't heard Caesar talking good about him in this way. And then it says, groaning under this age's yoke. A yoke is like a burden you would put on an ox that would help them to pull, in order to break up the ground for farming. So this age's yoke would be Caesar's rule, this burden of this, tyranny, this hard ruling that Caesar is bringing. Brutus says, into what dangers would you lead me, Cassius, that you would have me seek in myself for that which is not in me? It's almost like a little caution, right? Are you leading me down some dangerous road that I might not have the same thoughts in me as you're talking about? I mean, because Cassius can't come right out and say, I hate Caesar, I want to kill him, because he does not know yet where Brutus stands. And if Brutus is loyal to Caesar, then Cassius is in trouble. So he's hinting around here. Cassius says, therefore, good Brutus, be prepared to hear. And since you know you cannot see yourself so well as by reflection, I, your glass, will modestly discover to yourself that of yourself which you yet know not of. Whoa, that's a tongue twister, right? But it basically means I'm going to be your mirror, and I'm going to show you the stuff that you should be seeing in yourself that maybe you aren't even aware of yet. And then he gets into this kind of weird phrasing here. Be not jealous on me, gentle Brutus, meaning don't be suspicious of my motives. Were I a common laughter, in other words, if I were a public joke, or I did use to stale with ordinary oaths my love to every new protester, in other words, if I, made good friendships with everyone that came along, if I just tried to make, quick friends with people that you couldn't really trust me, if you know that I do fawn on men, fawn means to heap praise upon, and hug them hard. In other words, if I basically suck up to people to get my own stuff that I want, like, favors and stuff, and after scandal them, if I gossip or slander them, I talk trash about them, or if you know that I profess myself in banqueting to all the route, meaning if I'm trying to be friends with everybody, with the common people, then hold me dangerous. In other words, if you know me to just kind of talk cheap and then get what I want out of things and slander people and trash people, then you shouldn't trust me. Then there's trumpets and a shout. What means the shouting? I do fear the people choose Caesar for their king. Ah, do you fear it? Then I must think you would not have it so. So here's an in. Brutus is worried that people want to make Caesar king, and that's a problem. So Cassius is jumping on this. I don't think you want him to be king then, right? I would not, Cassius, yet I love him well. But wherefore do you hold me here so long? Why are we talking so long? What is it that you would impart to me? If it ought toward the general good, which is public welfare, set honor in one eye and death in the other, and I will look on both indifferently, without a preference. For let the gods so speed me. I love the name of honor more than I fear death. So this is a very interesting phrasing right here if you pay attention to it. Honor is of the utmost importance. Honor is more important than being alive, than death, than dying, right? So this is that thing, like if you talk to me about honor, if you're holding me here to talk to me about something honorable, then it's worth listening to, because that's how much I value honor. That's how he sets this up, and this is now what Cassius jumps upon. He says to him, I know that virtue to be in you, Brutus. I know you're honorable, as well as I know your outward favor. So I know the inside of you as well as the outside of you. Well, honor is the subject of my story. I cannot tell what you and other men think of this life, but for my single self, I had as lief not be, I would rather not exist, as live to be in awe of such a thing as myself. What is as myself? It means a man. I don't want to be in awe of just a man. In other words, I'm not going to worship just a person. I was born as free as Caesar, so were you. We've both fed as well, and we can both endure the winter's cold as well as he. In other words, we're all on the same level here as men. And then he goes into this story. For once upon a raw and gusty day, the troubled Tiber chafing with their shores, the river was rough. Caesar said to me, Darest thou, Cassius, now leap in with me into this angry flood and swim to yonder point? So Caesar challenged Cassius to a swimming contest, right? Upon the word accoutred means, had armor on. I plunged in and bade him follow. So indeed he did. So I jumped in and then he jumped in and we started swimming. The torrent, or the current, roared, and we did buffet it, we did bash against it with lusty sinews with our muscles. So we were like, muscling it through the river, throwing it aside and stemming it with hearts of controversy. We were making progress against a tough foe here. But ere, E-R-E is ear, meaning before, ere we could arrive the point proposed, Caesar cried, Help me, Cassius, or I sink. So Caesar wimped out. And I, as Aeneas, this is now an allusion with an A, allusion to a story, a mythology. It's actually from a poem by Virgil, who's a poet. I, as Aeneas, our great ancestor, did from the flames of Troy upon his shoulders did the old Anchises bear. So like in this poem, we all know where this old man was pulled out of the flames by this young hero. That's what I did to Caesar. So from the waves of Tiber did I the tired Caesar. And this man, this wimp, right, is now become a god, and Cassius is a wretched creature and must bend his body if Caesar carelessly but not on him. So now I have to suck up to this guy who I'm obviously more of a man than he is, right? He had a fever. So here's another story. He had a fever when he was in Spain, and when the fit was on him, and he was having tremors and convulsions and stuff, I did mark how he did shake. 'Tis true, this god did shake. His coward lips did from their color fly. In other words, he was all sick and wimpy and pathetic. Did lose, and that same eye whose bend doth all the world did lose his luster. So this, his strong eye that looks on the world and has to bow down to him was sick and couldn't see because of the fever. I did hear him groan. And that tongue of his that bade the Romans mark him and write his speeches in their books. Alas, it cried, give me some drink, Titinius. So this powerful speaker that, we'd all have to write down what he had to say, he was like whimpering for a drink of water. So give me some drink, Titinius, as a sick girl. Sorry, ladies. Ye gods, it does amaze me, a man of such feeble temper, in other words, a wimpy guy here, should so get the start of the majestic world and bear the palm alone. It's the symbol of victory, a palm, right? So in other words, this wimpy guy has seized the world and is ruling it on his own. All right, so we'll pause there before we continue with this conversation.